Welcome to Real Rover. I'm your roving host, John Craig. Real Rover へようこそ、クレイグ・ジョンでございます。Introducing you to people you would never have heard of if it wasn't for Real Rover. Here we go. Welcome again, Eric Wargo, to Real Rover. On our last date here on Zoom, looping back, we were talking about your previous book, which was Time Loops. And I hope it's doing as well as I would want it to for such a unique work, talking about something that is very hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. And I'm going to encourage people to read that as well as your new book, Precognitive Dream Work and the Long Self, which we're going to talk about today. Just published, is that correct?
Just published, yeah, a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
So this must be an interesting time for you. Your second book, the first book, no doubt, garnered a lot of interest.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot of great acclaim, from interesting people. I also, people also said, it's a tough book. and it's like, I wasn't, I guess, writing it necessarily for a popular audience so much. And I was really covering a lot of ground in it, everything from evidence for precognition to theories to, dreams to art, like just the whole sort of gamut of what I'd been thinking about up to that point. And so I don't know, I realized based on both the interest I was getting and especially the fact that everyone was telling me their dreams. It's like I realized, okay, the dreaming aspect of it, which I cover in like a chapter, of Time Loops, really needs its own book. And it needs to be a book that, is accessible and is usable, that I think there needed to be a guide to precognitive dream work. Such a thing has never really been written before. I mean, people, I'm certainly not the first to write about precognitive dreaming, but it's been, there'll be books that, here are a few of my precognitive dreams and, what could this mean? Or, here's some famous dreams from famous people that seem to predict the future and what could it mean? But I think we needed to move beyond that, here are a few exciting examples and wow, aren't these head scratchers? I am now in touch with, lots and lots of dreamers around the world who are sending me their dreams. And I've been studying my own precognitive dreams, now for close to 10 years. And, there's a lot of, these are super common. I mean, this is a nightly thing. This is not like once in a lifetime. I have, this amazing dream about, a plane crash or something like that. No, I think it's a nightly, daily phenomenon. And if you're paying attention, you can get evidence of this, and it's pretty easy. And moreover, it follows a pattern. There are a lot of patterns. There's a lot of regularity to how this works. A lot of commonalities. And man, when people send me their dream stories, and man, they all fit this pattern. And no one had laid that out before, to my knowledge, really. I mean, there have been a few, attempts, sort of, and we can talk about some of those maybe. But so, it just seemed clear, even though it wasn't kind of where my head was headed in terms of my own interests, I thought I really need to get a book out there that addresses this topic, that does a bit of myth busting about it, and that engages people, and that gets them excited.
You certainly did that. It is a challenging work, but it's a rewarding work. The subject is indeed something that needs to be talked about. And let's start with a character that you introduce at the beginning of the book, who perhaps should have known better. Maybe he really did know, but he didn't want us to know that he really did know, because the age that he lived in, the super scientific, materialistic, it's all in the brain age, actually, according to your research, himself had some pretty incredible precognitive dream material going on. And if it hadn't been for him, maybe we wouldn't be paying any attention to these things called dreams. So let's talk a little about Sigmund Freud, who plays a large part in your book.
Absolutely. Man, the story of Freud's story really, it's so fascinating. I give a pretty good chunk of time loops to Freud's story. And I found that, in this dream book, I obviously had to like revisit Freud. I mean, his story is just so fascinating. So Freud was his book, The Interpretation of Dreams, which he wrote, actually published it in 1899, but he actually asked his publisher to put the 1900 as the date, because he wanted this book to belong to the 20th century, because he really felt this was a huge revolution in the study, not just of dreaming, but of the mind, and it was. I mean, it was hugely important. It was sort of a transformative book that really defined at least clinical psychology and psychiatry for the better part of a century. Now his fate, in the sciences and so on, he has had some rocky legacy. Yeah. And a lot of people think, well, hasn't Freud been debunked? And this is, something I address in the book. No, he has not been debunked. His certain specific claims that he made, that he's most famous for, if you don't know anything about Freud, he thought everything's sex. Okay. Well, yeah, that's been debunked. No one thinks that anymore. Even psychoanalysts don't really think that anymore. But his larger claim was for the importance of the unconscious, for the importance of this, this vast, he compares it to an iceberg, where, our consciousness is just the tip of what this vast submerged part of us that is really running the show, and that it surfaces in all kinds of ways, in our neuroses, and our patterns of interacting with other people, and and in things like slips of the tongue and jokes and art and so forth. And dreams is like the most obvious. And that was, his first, his book, The Interpretation of Dreams, was sort of his big kind of big splash, where, he sort of introduced this, radical new idea. Now the thing is, he was a product of his time, of the Enlightenment. He did have occult interests. So he was not he actually believed in telepathy. He believed in, he had a lot of like numerological sort of superstitions. And, he was not opposed to things that we would call paranormal, but the one thing he couldn't abide was the idea of dreams predicting the future. This has been an idea in every culture on Earth throughout history, has just taken it for granted that dreams sometimes predict future events. Okay. But, the Enlightenment just couldn't abide that. That's just sort of it's verboten in Enlightenment materialism as it was sort of formulated, in the Enlightenment. You couldn't have an effect preceding its cause. Okay. And that's what effectively a precognitive dream amounts to. It's some event in the future causing a dream in the past. Okay. And so Freud, this isn't allowed. So, he would even he would have patients claiming to have had precognitive dreams, and he would say, no, what you were really dreaming about is this other thing. And he would make some sort of psychoanalytic interpretation of it. And he would essentially invoke the idea that your memory is fallible and that you're misremembering these things. And that's still the sort of basic debunking tactic that skeptics will use. But the really interesting thing about Freud, the dream that like gave him like the epiphany about what dreams are, which for him were the disguised, symbolically disguised fulfillments of repressed wishes. Okay, that was his basic dream theory. The very dream that gave him that epiphany was a dream he describes it at length in his book, but it boils down to he's looking into the mouth of this patient of his that he was really treating for hysteria. And there's these white patches in the back of her mouth and these scabs, and she's like afraid to open her mouth because, like someone has dentures, and he can see up inside her nose through her mouth. Okay, well, long after Freud was dead, a cancer surgeon who happened to also be a psychoanalyst was going through Freud's files and going through his medical records, okay, and discovered that, Freud himself developed an oral cancer late in life, in his 60s, that started with white patches at the back of his mouth. And then he had to have these surgeries, a series of surgeries, which left him with all these scabs in the mouth. And then they had to take out his palate in his mouth. It was brutal surgery. It's disgusting. They take a chisel to his palate, and he was, it was really awful. And he wound up where you could see inside his nose from inside his mouth. It's gross, but it's true. And then he wound up wearing a denture for the last 15 years of his life. Cancer, it didn't kill him immediately. He went on to do a lot of work and some of his best writing, in fact. But his last decade and a half were miserable because he was dealing with this physical infirmity. This guy this surgeon and psychoanalyst noticed that wait, this dream he had about this patient, this famous dream, was precognitive of the illness that dominated the last decade and a half of Freud's life. And what do you do with that? It's to me what's so interesting about this whole story is that the key for Freud, the key that unlocked the human psyche is the story of Oedipus. Okay, the story of the Greek king Oedipus, who basically, in a nutshell, his father, gets a prophecy that his newborn son is going to grow up to kill him and marry his wife, that is the boy's mother. So so the king has, orders that the baby to be taken out to the wilderness and left for dead. And of course, a shepherd comes, rescues the boy, takes him to another city where he grows up as the adopted son of the other king of that city. But he doesn't know it. He doesn't know he's adopted. And so then he grows up, and then he gets an oracle tells him, you are going to kill your father and marry your mother. And he goes, oh my God, I can't do that. So he flees that city that he's grown up in. And he winds up in the wilderness, encounters this man at a crossroads and kills him. And that man, of course, turns out to be his real father. and he winds up, after an encounter with a sphinx, he winds up marrying Jocasta, his actual birth mother, without knowing it, and of course bringing plagues on his city and so on. And the story, and Sophocles' play, Oedipus Rex, is sort of about this detective story where he finds out that he's the killer. Well, for Freud, this was the key to human psychology, because we all want to kill our father and marry our mother, or if we're a woman, we want to kill our mother and marry her father. But he ignored the prophecy part of it. For him, prophecy was just an ancient superstition, and no one believes that. Well, in fact, Freud was the one denying prophecy, right?
Absolutely.
And fulfilling his future that he had foreseen in a dream, in effect, by trying to evade it, by writing this massive book about what dreams are, that they're, disguised fulfillments of repressed wishes and not prophecies of the future. Okay, so he's enacting the real Oedipus story. And I think that the Oedipus, I think that we need to kind of return to Freud and realize that Freud was right without realizing it. That Oedipus really is the core to our psychology. That we are ruled by time loops. We're ruled by this foreknowledge, or these inklings of our future that come to us in dreams, that guide us unconsciously in daily life. But because we don't believe in precognition, most of us haven't even heard of precognition, and then if we have heard of it, we think, oh, well, that's preposterous. It rules our lives, and so we're all like Oedipus in that way. And it has nothing to do with the marrying your mother and killing your father part. I mean, you can throw that part out. But so I just think Freud, his story, both his denial of precognition, what we now call precognition, and the fact that a precognitive dream was what made him Sigmund Freud, the great pioneer of the unconscious.
This makes me, that's a very interesting point for me, because I often ask people, do you dream? And of course, a certain group of people, let's say, will always say, no, I don't dream. Or if I do, it doesn't mean anything. And connected to what you've just said, perhaps there is something in people that really doesn't want to face up to the fact that we are all capable of tuning in to our own futures. And that suggests the very scary possibility that maybe things could be set in the future. Just like in the story of Oedipus, he was born to actually go through all of that and actually kill his father. The horrendous word fate appears on the horizon. No, there's no fate. Therefore, I don't dream. Therefore, there are no precognitive dreams. I mean, if that isn't an unconscious bias, I don't know what is. But these days, perhaps more people are interested in the idea, because our scientific materialistic paradigm is getting a bit shaky, and the response you've had from your readers, some of them quite extraordinary, really clearly, brilliantly precognitive dreams, is bringing this back to our attention. But Freud did open the door, and for that, definitely we need to thank him. And I did watch your YouTube lecture. I think it was in Colorado there a couple of years ago, where you gave a presentation just about this. So for interested viewers, we'll put a link for that so they can go a bit deeper. So people started to communicate with you, and there was one woman in particular who really was having the most astonishing precognitive dreams. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what she showed you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is an amazing story that is in the book. So right, I don't know how to tell the story. So like right after Time Loops was published, I mean, literally days after time. Well, I guess, a couple weeks after Time Loops was published, I get an email from a woman that I had not seen or spoken with in, I guess, 30 years, since we were in college together at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And she's, initially kind of like, hesitant to tell the story because it sounds so strange, and she's, afraid of, sounding, that I'm gonna think she's crazy or something like that. And she's saying, we need to talk. I've got something to share with you, and I don't know if you're gonna believe it. So, long story short, she tells me this kind of amazing narrative that back when we were housemates in a basement in Boulder, Colorado in 1987 and 88, with a number of other friends. I mean, it was like there were 7 of us, renting a very cheap basement apartment near the campus in Boulder. And during that time, at the dead of winter, I didn't even know her that well. She was kind of a friend of my girlfriend at the time, and so on. But she basically had to withdraw from school because of some real dark depression that she fell into that winter. And what I didn't know, I sort of vaguely knew that part of the story, but what I didn't know, and that she told me, was that she had during this depression, she had a series of really, really horrible dreams, where she had, in each of these dreams, she was this boy that she had known in 2nd grade, who she gave a pseudonym for him, Michael, was looming over her in these dreams, and she was trying to kill him, with a very certain weapon. This dream kept recurring over the course of this depression that winter, that she had this dream of trying to kill this kid that she'd known at 2nd grade, in a city on the East Coast that she'd, hadn't lived at, for nearly a decade, had no contact, no reason to be dreaming about this kid from 2nd grade. Okay, well, fast forward about 25 years after that, she had another dream about this kid. And then just like in the fall of 2018, right when my book came out, she had another dream about this kid. And she didn't know anything about me or my book at this point, but she had another dream about this kid, and it prompted her to look him up on Google. And she discovered the horrible news that this guy had been murdered. 10 years ago, he'd been murdered quite a while ago, but exactly the way that she had been trying to kill him in her dreams from college. Well, this was wild. Now, she was already an adept dream worker. I mean, she's this, I call her a shaman. I mean, she's really a shaman. Most of her dreaming is actually active dreaming during the day. She will actually type at a computer and go into a trance. I mean, she's doing, it's Jungian stuff, but like really amazing amazing stuff. And she was already aware of like all the synchronicities that happened around her dream life. But so that night, I mean, she was like in a real state, when she discovered that she had been dreaming about this murder that happened 20 years after her dreams in college. So she was doing it sort of in a frenzy, and she was doing a lot of online research. And in the online research she did that evening, I think, or the next day, it occurred to her to Google all of her old roommates from that period in her life. And lo and behold, she Googled my name, and it turned out I had been writing about precognition and precognitive dreaming on my blog. And I had just published a book on the subject, okay? Like literally a couple days earlier, And so she finally, I think hesitated a while and then finally reached out to me by email. It's like, I've got this amazing story for you. And so it prompted a long kind of online interaction where she's sharing her dreams, and it's, she's realizing, she realized that she's this total hyper precog. I mean, she has hundreds of precognitive dreams in her journal. They she had thought of it as synchronicity. We can talk about this, but the kind of, people don't have a concept of precognition, but they do have a concept of synchronicity thanks to Carl Jung. And so they will sort of fit these experiences into that box, but she realized, whoa, it's more than that. These are time loops, essentially, what I described in my first book. And so this amazing story that was, it was not random that she had these dreams when I was her roommate, I don't think. I mean, I was, I think I acted, my presence, like I said, we were not like close friends, but I think my presence there in her life acted as a kind of prime, and it triggered a short circuit between that winter and this discovery about her, this childhood kid in second grade, 30 years later. And the thing is, that sounds amazing, but honestly, Freud's dream was, I think it was 23 years later that he developed oral cancer. I got lots of examples in the book of precognitive dreams and time loops that span decades of a person's life. This is not rare. It's rare to discover it, I think, but it's not rare to have. I think we're doing this all the time. I think that if we only all had these detailed dream journals from our whole past and could compare it to events in our lives, we would see that we are just these knots in time, and the ones that we happen to detect are just the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, her story is phenomenal, and there are more wrinkles to it that it's too much to even summarize in a interview.
I think people who are interested in this and who may be watching us right now, I think we need to clarify that a precognitive dream is not about something that will happen in the future that has nothing to do with you. It always has to do with you, because you're precogging, if I can use that term, you're precogging an experience in your future, which will include that information, which may have come from a newspaper, it may have come from a movie. It doesn't really matter. You are centrally involved in it. So it's not like we go to sleep and we dream, oh, wow, this is going to happen. This is the future, objectively, without you in it at all. It's entirely about you, yourself. I think we need to make that really clear. And I think that's why people are so afraid of the concept, in a sense, because it's about me. So if I'm dreaming about it, like she was dreaming about it and you're dreaming about it, then I should pay attention, but I don't want to pay attention to it because that means that certain things are going to happen 20, 30, 40 years in the future that I have no control over changing. Would that be a correct interpretation?
Yeah, that's the anxiety. And I put a lot of the real estate of my book is devoted to trying to allay that anxiety in people because yes, dreams are about our own future experiences, including learning experiences and traumas and rewards mostly. I mean, really, most dreams are about things that reward us in the future. Even if they seem to be about bad events, it's often about our withstanding of those bad events or our survival of those bad events. But yeah, it gives people anxiety. But I try to remind them that, well, first of all, I have yet to, well, I'll hedge this a little bit. There are some counterexamples, I suppose, but there are very few examples where people have a dream that's just really crystal clear and they know something that's going to happen, and then it happens exactly the way they dreamed it or when they dreamed it. I mean, some people will have, there are some people who will regularly have dreams about like air disasters, for instance, and they'll be pretty confident, okay, I think this is going to happen. And they may be right, but they're never right. They never know when it's going to happen or where it's going to happen or to whom it's going to happen. And those are rare. I mean, more often our dreams are very symbolic, just as Freud said. It's one of the reasons we do need to pay attention to Freud, because he did understand how dreams disguise things symbolically. And most precognitive dreams, even the ones where we just, this is somehow going to happen. You never know when, how, where, and I'll add something to that. Dreams that may seem like premonitions, like dire premonitions, they often turn out very different from what we think. A dream that'll seem to be about some terrible catastrophe will be either about something actually objectively, just trivial. I have an example in the book about, a cinematic dream I had that essentially was about a knife in the water. And in fact, I went to work that day, and it would seem, it was kind of ominous, but in reality, it was like, oh yeah, this sink had backed up, and the dream and the knife I wanted was in the bottom of the backed up sink. A trivial kind of event in my day, or it'll seem like something scary and ominous, and in fact, it'll be something actually good or rewarding. But in the dream, it had been flipped. So we shouldn't be scared of precognitive dreams. I try to reassure people that precognitive dreams are not to be feared, because they're always in one way or another about our survival. Actually, they're always in one way or another about our withstanding of things.
I think that's I think that's a really important point to discuss. Eric, there is that anxiety in many people. And like you said about your dream with the knife, you as a dreamer have an entirely unique set of symbols and motifs that your quote unquote unconscious will throw to your attention so that you will pay attention. It's an attention grabbing device right there inside of you. And it doesn't work the same for all people because we're all unique artists. We'll all have different ways of expressing things in our dreams, which should be obvious. But you do go into a lot of very good examples in the book like that, including quite a few of your own, because you've been recording your dreams for a long time. You have a dream journal and you do it electronically, as you noted. So once we get past the anxiety factor, and then we begin to think, okay, it could be possible. And why should I be interested then? It's possible, I can get that far. Why should I be interested in recording my dreams that may contain a lot of precognitive material? What is the benefit that's going to accrue from that?
Well, there are a lot of benefits. The first of them is it is mind-blowing. I mean, it's one thing to read about this, okay, as one thing to read about this possibility or whatever. It is another thing to experience it firsthand, to, you know, to like, okay, start keeping a dream journal and recording your dreams. And then, you know, the first time it happens, you know, like, you know, a couple days later, you have an experience and like, wait a minute, you go back to your dream, you know, like I recommend, you know, you need to go back to your dream journal every evening, you know, just to kind of look at the last few days' dreams, because that's the key part of precognitive dream work that people don't think to do. No one, never occurs to anyone to go back to their dream journal and read their previous few days' dreams, kind of reflect on how they might relate to events in the interim. But when you do that and you start detecting these things, and then you'll start off, you know, you'll detect things that like, that seems kind of, yeah, that's it could be, you know, but then you'll have one that's just like, oh my God, and it's like, boom, this dream was clearly about this experience, you know, waking experience, you know, a day later, 3 days later, a week later. And the longer you keep dream journals, you start detecting them on your yearly anniversaries of events, you know, in your future, which is mind-blowing. Even a dream just about an event the next day, it's mind-blowing because it goes against everything that we have been taught about time and about the mind, you know, about psychology. I mean, it really is like, you know, and it's one of those things, I think anyone who has any kind of paranormal experience, you know, there's a tendency to, first of all, you're like, whoa, this is paradigm altering. But then there's also a tendency for doubt to creep in. And over time you go, oh,
it wasn't
that
a
wasn't,
UFO.
that wasn't real.
No, it could have been a fairy. No.
Yeah, right.
And then you discover.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah, but the thing is, but the thing is, when you start having them repeatedly and you start to detect patterns and you start to understand your own unconscious and your own language, your own symbolic language, and the way that these things happen in your life, it's this huge, like it opens this huge door into yourself, into your mind, into your consciousness. So there's that.
That's a huge benefit. That's a huge benefit. Yeah. And, you know, if I may just share one short one, I live by the shores of a lake in which a good friend of mine died. And the night before he died, in the dream, I was on, and it was summer at the time, actually, but in the dream, I was standing on the actual veranda of my house looking over the lake, and there was snow on the railing, and I could feel it. And I thought, that's strange, it's snow. I mean, it's summer. Somewhere in the dream, I knew it should be summer. And out of the bushes underneath my house came an alligator, very, very clear. I mean, super lucid. And the alligator slithered through the bushes and the grass and plopped into the lake. And it was the end of the dream. And I thought, oh, wow. First of all, there aren't any alligators in Canada, and it's the wrong season. But it was such a powerful dream that I decided to check the symbolism of crocodile and alligator. So I got on the net, and that took me to Egyptian symbology. And the alligator or the crocodile symbolizes death, chaos, and transformation. And that's the night that my friend drowned. And it hit me like a freight train, just like you said, like, whoa. You know, I've done my own research and I'm open to these things. But to have a dream that is so deeply personal involving somebody's death, that's going to hit you. And that can open the door. It can also close it if you don't have a framework to put it within. And this book about the long self, which we're going to get to, dream work and the long self, that's the subtitle. This can be a way of stabilizing people who are ready to go there, but I dreamed about my friend dying. I don't know if I want any more of that, but wait. There's a lot more goodies out there that you can enjoy. And perhaps you could talk a bit more about how dreaming of your future self, learning and experiencing can actually help you to become that self, let's say, more smoothly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that, okay, so the long self, just to kind of give a definition of what that means. I mean, what I guess the ultimate benefit of precognitive dream work, beyond even the rewards we were just talking about, is, okay, you realize that you are not who you are at this moment in time. This present moment. Okay, you are your whole life. Okay, birth to death. And I'm not willing to, I'm not ready to talk about beyond that. And either, this doesn't address that, I don't think. But your past is still here. It's still with you. And in fact, if your future thoughts are and future experiences, are impacting you nightly in the form of your dreams, well, by extension, then your experiences now, today, any kind of, big, exciting or rewarding thought that you have or experience or epiphany or whatever, that is affecting your past. Your past was already affected by that thought you're having today. So in effect, you are shaping who you always were. You're shaping your past. And there's really, it may feel like the past is dead and gone, but in fact, according to the block universe model of physics that this all kind of supports, the past is still here. Your past, somewhere, out there in the block universe, you're still a 5-year-old boy running around, or you're still a, college student or whatever. And likewise, your future already exists. It's already ahead of you. And even if we can't, see it clearly in consciousness and we don't even believe it, it's real. And this dreams show you that. And that having that epiphany that, wow, I'm not just this schlub sitting here, right now, picking my nose. I'm this vast, sublime, complex worm snaking through the block universe, worm. I mean, in the best sense. I mean, you're having these, incredible experiences, in your everything you've ever experienced and done in your past and everything to come in your future is already there. It's this huge formation that you could explore endlessly. I sort of think of it as a landscape, this landscape that we can, we're used to sort of walking on this path, through this landscape, but now we should start paying attention to, the caves, around us, the caves that actually there's a cave system underneath this path that connects us to different points in our life. It's just, your life becomes like 10 times more interesting than it was before. And that dream journal that grows a little bit every day, never, start small, but it grows a little bit every day, becomes this, really becomes a kind of time machine. And you're able to explore these grottos and cave systems that connect all the points in your life to each other out of sight,
Yeah, you are the time machine. And
yeah.
For many people like myself too, it is an exciting and interesting prospect, because especially if these dreams are later confirmed as being precognitive, and this is an important point, you don't know it's a precognitive dream until you reach that moment in time, 10 years, 10 minutes. An interesting point you raised was that these dreams seem to be they have a weird calendar around them. It's a year ahead or 10 years ahead or 30 years ahead. It's not 3.5 months, for example. I found that very, very interesting.
It sometimes is. It sometimes is. That's not a hard and fast rule, but there's a number of kind of factors that seem to play into when we have a dream in a relationship to a future experience. And anniversaries is one of those factors that can really trigger a dream. If you have like a big event in your life, and this is not generally trivial events, but sort of momentous things or really kind of mind-blowing experiences of one kind or another, you'll often dream about exactly a year beforehand, or exactly multiple years. For instance, the births of both of my children there were very specific details about the births of both of my children, and I dreamed those details. In each case, exactly a year beforehand. And this is before my wife was even pregnant. So it's like, no way, could I have, consciously predicted these things. And at the time, those dreams didn't make any sense. They just seemed crazy. Both of them were somewhat symbolic, but one of them was actually pretty literal. But I had no way of predicting that scene would unfold, exactly a year later because of the birth of my second daughter. And in the first case, it was very symbolic, but it was like, the symbolism was obvious in hindsight. So, well, here's
an elephant in a room. So people watching are going, wait a minute, this is suggesting a deterministic block universe where it's all decided, and this is how my life is going to turn out. It's all already set, just like we've said. It's out there. It's set. But wait a minute, I have free will. I can change. I can change the whole thing. I can not be the son of the king somehow, and I won't kill him. But actually, you do, mate. Right? So this does bring up that thorny issue, which for some people's egos would be, well, then I can't control anything anymore. I mean, what's the point, right? So maybe we should address that right now.
Yeah, I know. This is, everyone brings this up at some point. It's like, okay, hey, wait a minute. It's the whole determinism thing. It feels Calvinistic somehow. There's, things are predestined. Well, look, we have no problem with the idea that you can't change the past, right? I mean, I can't change what happened 10 seconds ago. Well, according to Einstein and according to, physics, 21st century physics, there's a point of view out there from which my freely willed actions right now, my talking to you and being freely willed and raising my hand or doing whatever I want to do, that is in the past to another observer. Okay, so what does that mean? And when we talk about changing the future, changing from what? I mean, what is it we don't like about the future that we want to change from it? It's like precognition doesn't allow you to see the future clearly. I mean, it's like we can't see the path ahead. And precognitive dreams, like I said, they bring us, either they're very symbolic, in which case, you really can't tell exactly how, even if you know a dream is precognitive, you don't know how it's going to turn out or how events are going to turn out. And even if there are dreams that are sort of video quality, that experiences that you then live through, but you don't know when or how or in what context or what it means. It's, so you don't know the future. So why are you so hell-bent on changing it from what it already is? That doesn't really make sense, but it's an anxiety that we as Westerners feel because free will is so much a part of individualism. But I believe it's a Western hang up. It's not a universal hang up. And I always, and I think I don't know if we got into Zen much in our earlier interview, but, my Zen practice has been hugely important for sort of helping me, embrace the block universe and the sort of what seems like scary determinism, but I've had Zen epiphanies that are just like, yeah, it's a block universe, and that's a blissful fact, and it's really empowering. And Zen masters, they will, you don't want to be going around when you're at your most effective and at your most happy and your most blissful, are those moments when you are not like consciously deliberating and choosing. You are just part of this huge machine that is the universe, and it feels awesome. Anyone who's been in a flow state, or done a martial art, just doing a flawless martial arts move that you've practiced again and again, and it all comes together, or piloting a plane, or some skill, that just requires your total flow and total focus, without sitting back and deciding. That's the model, the sort of Zen model of action, and that's where you want to be. And so this idea of carrying around this baggage of free will is like, I'm happy to set it aside.
I like it. Dump the baggage, the free will baggage. Well, the connection with Zen is definitely keenly appreciated. And I think that brings us to, because there are so many things we could discuss here, but that brings us to the actual practice of dream work, because the title of your book is it's not precognitive dreams, it's precognitive dream work and along self. So right from the get-go, there's the idea in this book that you can work on this, that you can develop your innate capability to have more precognitive dreams, and then by confirming them, as we've discussed, you get more and more of a feeling of, in my case, how I'm more in alignment with what is going to happen anyway, whether I like it or not. And I probably will like it, because so far it's been pretty damn good, right? So why shouldn't it continue like this? No doom and gloom at all. So in your book, you mentioned a very important point of not only writing a journal, but going back. And that's important, because a lot of people write journals and they forget to go back a week or 2 weeks, and they go, wow, that little episode in there is connected. Not maybe, it is connected to what I'm going through right now. And if that's the case, well, then maybe I should pay even more attention. So share with us your recommendations for actually doing this work.
Yes. Okay. So there are 3 steps to precognitive dream work. It's very simple. And I'll say 2 of those steps were already identified and written about in 1927 by a sort of the I think, pioneer in what I now call precognitive dream work. Was named John William Dunn. He was an English aeronautical engineer, soldier and aeronautical engineer, who also a precognitive dreamer. And he approached his, he wanted to know what was going on. And so he started writing down his dreams and treating it like kind of an engineering problem, and sort of figured out the kind of basics. Now, he was not writing at a time when there was a well-developed, neuroscience theory of dreaming that he could sort of tack this onto. And, there were, and also physics, Einstein helped him understand how this might work. But, there have been a lot of developments since then that actually more deeply illuminate what's happening. But the 2 steps that you mentioned, keeping a dream, writing down all of your dreams in detail, as much detail as you can remember when you wake up. Step 1. And then step 3 is for him was step 2, which was then going back to your dream journal every evening, at least the last few days' dreams, because most precognitive dreams, or, a good percentage of them, they're going to be about events in the next few days or the next week, most likely. And so you're going to be most likely to detect them from the past few days dream journal. It would take you too long, as your dream journal grows, it would consume your whole life if you were like actually comparing your whole dream journal to all the events in your life. I mean, that's, you got to set limits. So, he thought, last couple days, I say last 3 days, every night, the end of the day, just before you go to bed, just take a minute to like look back at your dream records and think about it. Now, there's a second step, which he did not do. And I think this is what takes it to the next level, really. And that's after you write down the dream in the morning, take a few minutes, if you can, to free associate on it. Now, all free association means is just ask yourself, just reflect on, like, what is the first thing this reminds me of? And I mean, do that for all the elements in the dream, not the dream as a whole, although that too, but just, what are the elements in the dream? Some particular person, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Just the first thing, just write that down. Be honest with yourself. Don't like force it. Don't go into all kinds of interpretation or whatever, because the point is just the first thing that reminds you of. That's the associations. First one or two things that it reminds you of. Those are the associations. Okay. It's those things that are as likely to relate to a subsequent experience as the explicit dream image. It's often those missing associations. See, now this is where Dunn, although he was aware of Freud and aware of Freud's theories and of the unconscious, all that, he didn't really put his ideas together with Freud. And that's what I'm doing. And in my experience, it's that second step of free associating that just, boom, it just opens up your dreams like a key in a lock.
Oh, that's really interesting, Eric, because I hadn't really got that clear through my reading. And now I get it, because I'd mentioned that dream about standing on the veranda looking out over the lake, and it should have been summer, but I was actually touching and very clearly feeling the cold of the snow that had landed on the railing. And an instant of free association now is, wait a minute, this shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening, right? And my friend was quite a happy-go-lucky guy, and he had a perfectly good reason to continue living. We don't know if it was an accident or we think it could have been something else, that he may have actually knocked himself off, right? But either way, this shouldn't be happening here. If I'd had that free association then, it would have probably given me more grist for the mill to understand that whole sequence. So that number 2 part is really important. I think many people write their dreams because it's become quite popular, but they don't free associate and they don't go back 3 or 4 days. And like you said, reading about going back through your dream journals, you'd be sitting in your armchair all day reading about them, right? You have to set limits. So those are very precise and doable things for every person. What about the people who claim that I don't dream? I'm interested in dreaming, but here it never happens. What are we going to do?
Well, okay. First of all, yes, you do dream, because we all dream. It's basic to our memory formation. I mean, that's the latest sort of, that's where neuroscience theories of dreaming have kind of led to, is that dreaming is the experience of new memories being made. Okay. And we all do it. We do the sort of REM sleep kind of dreams, which are the ones we typically remember, that are the kind of vivid scenes and bizarre situations and stuff like that. We do that 2.5 hours a night, generally speaking. We also probably dream the rest of the night, but on a more nebulous level, and it's very hard to remember those usually. But so you are dreaming. People, but dreams are very hard to remember. Even people who say they dream a lot and are interested in dreams, you really, when you wake up the first, you really have to write them down, because they fade like the morning dew. And people who are not sort of used to sort of introspecting or not thinking about their own thought stream, in waking life, may not be, aware of their dreaming to the same extent, and they may, just not remember those things when they wake up. And also, a lot of us are busy. If you have a busy life where you have to like leap out of bed, when the alarm goes off, to go to work, take care of your kids, all the stresses of life tend to get in the way of remembering your dreams. So, there are a lot of stresses that will kind of cause us to not remember our dreams. But setting, this is where setting an intention is so powerful. Just all it takes, honestly, if you're not someone who remembers your dreams, just get a journal and a pen and stick it by your bed. You will start to remember your dreams just doing that. People find like, oh, wow, yeah, I had a dream. It's like, and you write it down. So just having that intention, just keeping a pad and a pen, pencil, whatever you want to use by your bed will prime the pump, and you'll start, remembering your dreams. You'll start dreaming.
That's very encouraging. We all do dream. I've noted that from other researchers. There's nobody that doesn't dream, because if you stop dreaming, like you said, the memory formation system will get completely knackered right there. Mm-hmm. And I'm reminded of, I think it was an ancient Chinese water torture, they call it, where they didn't stop people from sleeping to drive them crazy. They woke them up every time they started having REM. And it only took 3 or 4 days of stopping people from REM sleep, thus dreaming, to crack them. You didn't have to torture them any other way. And that should be a pretty powerful statement about how important those couple of hours are every night. And we are all going through it. So maybe paying attention to it, having gone through this discussion, then the merits are pretty obvious. The merits are actually really exciting and interesting and potentially revolutionary. So I think you've come up with something here that's really hit a nerve, especially now. People in lockdown all over the world, they got a lot more time they have to spend alone. And for people who haven't spent time with themselves, people who don't practice Zen or meditation or martial arts, who haven't really addressed the issues that they hold within themselves, now they're exposed to them because there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to go. Surely this is an incredibly good time to consider the possibility of doing precognitive dream work and considering the fact that maybe you are a long self, and wow, wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, absolutely. Although it's interesting, this whole lockdown period of the past year has had a very interesting effect on people. I hear two things. I hear some people have their like dream life has just exploded, in the past year, as you'd kind of expect. We're confronting a lot more sort of traumas, which, and as you say, we have more time to spend with ourselves and so on. But I've also heard the opposite story from a lot of people, which is that like, wow, I used to dream all the time. And like this past year, I like just haven't been dreaming, and it's like, I don't know what's going on there. Wow. But yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people are just like not dreaming the same way. I too am not dreaming the same way at all. But in my case, I have a new baby, and like the sort of the interrupted sleep thing is like, if you've got a new baby, it's like, yeah, maybe it's not the best time to like embark on the dream work path, because like poor sleep quality will always interfere with your ability to recall dreams and so on. But Yeah, it's like this period has a strange effect on dreamers.
Well, perhaps it is that anxiety factor that we brought up earlier. People are more anxious anyway, and the anxiety factor that exists vis-a-vis our possibly being precognitive dreamers and what that might entail is amplified by the anxiety for our future itself. You know, what's going to happen to me next week, next month, next year? And that shuts the valve off, which is actually not very healthy when you think about it, because that's a double lockdown. That's a double lockdown. Yeah. That's something we need to, I think, avoid at all costs. So on that note of how important your sleep time is, Eric, with the young ones, I think I'll draw it to a close now with a lot of thanks for your exemplary work. I mean, it really is a very solid, deep book that you're going to have to spend some time reading. It's not a flip through kind of book. It's got a lot of challenges in there. We didn't go into synchronicity and other occult experiences and out of body, which we've discussed personally. I think those are issues for a different discussion. And those are issues people who are aware of them will already have thought about, and they'll think more about them when they read this. And one that comes up is remote viewing, because I am a remote viewer, and I did read your excellent article about a very famous remote viewing session done by the initial military remote viewers about a secret installation in Russia, which I will add a link to in this interview for those remote viewers who are interested in seeing an entirely different way of understanding what it is that we're doing. And links to you're still doing the night shirt?
Yeah, not as frequently as I once did back in the day, but you know, I'm posting a few times a year. Yeah, and I've got a new post up that sort of gives a nice summary of the new book. So if people want to get a taste of what it's going to be about, they can read the latest
post. We'll share that on the YouTube too. And given enough time, we've already got your last interview in Japanese, which is already definitely creating some interest. And with the subject being dreams, I think that putting this interview with Japanese subtitles will generate more interest too. So, cool. Thank you, Eric. Much obliged to you for your time. And I look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
Thank you, John. This has been delightful.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care.